Joining us right now, GOP political strategist, also co-founder of MustReadTexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Doing great. Good morning.
Thanks for coming on today. Let's start off talking a little Texas political news out there, and something that a vote will not go down until next year in January, but already a lot of news out there about the race for Texas Speaker. Tell us the latest on that. And, right now, Joe Straus, it seems like he has all the momentum in this. Is there really a race for Speaker?
Boy, I think a couple months ago, there was a chance that the Scott Turner challenge to Speaker Joe Straus, I think, could have started to build momentum. Turner has an impressive background. He's African American. He played football. He's very articulate, but he's also just a freshman state rep. And the question about the speaker's race all along has been, can he expand his support base beyond the sort of vocal group that's anti-Straus among the conservative members of the Texas House? And there's, anywhere between 15 and 25 of those, I would say. And so far, it looks like he's not only not been able to expand beyond that, but he's also seems to be losing a couple members that you might normally think would be for him. The highest profile of whom was Giovanni Figlione, who announced he was going to support Straus at a Tea Party meeting in Northeast Tarrant County a week ago tonight, and has been getting a lot of grief because of that. But you also saw, I think, six or seven Dallas area state reps announced that they were going to support Straus. And that included a couple members who have been generally more aligned with the Tea Party. So, it is a great question. If Straus is weak, if you believe that feeling that he's politically weak, then it's not clear to me why he continues to survive these challenges, which never seem to be very well organized, which never seem to gain much momentum. Now, it should be said that Straus derives a good amount of his support from Democrats in the Texas House, who believe that having a more moderate, more collegial, more collaborative speaker is in their interests. But he also has, Republicans that support him as well. I think they've even said they may have as many as 80 Republicans that support him out of what will be 98 Republicans. So Straus has wide support, and he seems to be in a stronger position politically right now than anyone thought was possible.
Yeah, the popular opinion out there, I guess, is that at best Straus is a moderate. Scott Turner would obviously be more conservative. You look at this past election, and even going back, I think a couple of years in Texas politics, you are seeing more conservative candidates being elected. How does Joe Straus play into that with his leadership? I mean, has he stopped a lot of conservative momentum in the Texas House?
So, I think that the coalition that supports him for Speaker that he holds together is, a solid number of Republicans and a solid number of Democrats. And so, since those are the members that elect him or that are solidly behind him, he generally, I think, works to advance a legislative agenda that can keep that coalition together. Now, it should be said that in the past, the two challenges by Ken Paxton and Brian Hughes that were developing ended up ending before the vote. And what's different about this time is that Scott Turner has said he wants a roll call vote no matter what. There's a school of thought that even some of the Straus folks also want a roll call vote because they believe Turner's support is so low that it will be embarrassing. It will also really put Turner's supporters out on an island for the entire 140-day session. But to your question, if you had more of a Dan Patrick style conservative as the Speaker of the Texas House, would you have more conservative legislation passing? Yeah, you would. You'd have campus carry passing. You'd have school choice passing. You'd have a more streamlined, more fiscally conservative budget. But listen, the House is not as conservative as the Senate is now. The Senate, particularly if they move the two-thirds rule down to 60%, which I think they will, the Senate is going to be the conservative agitator between the two bodies, and the House is going to be responding to the Senate in a lot of cases. And I do think the House and Senate are going to be far apart on the budget, and that's going to be one of the major issues this session that's going to have to get reconciled where I think Governor-elect Greg Abbott will have to step in.
It'll be interesting to see the dynamic of how Strauss and some of the conservatives play going into this next legislative session, and then what the ramifications will be from here on out. Because you have some who are saying, okay, if you vote for Strauss and you're a Republican, or you say that you're Tea Party or conservative, we're going to hold that against you in future elections. And so, I mean, that could be a big impact out there.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it depends. But yeah, there's no question that they want a roll call vote because they want to be able to use that vote against members who support Strauss in primaries next time. Now, I've also heard, chatter that Strauss may just serve one more term, so I don't know how valuable a roll call vote would be if he only served one more term. But, the conservative groups that have gone after Strauss for the last, 4 or 5 years have taken out some of his lieutenants in primaries. They haven't taken out enough to change the math in the speaker's race, but they have taken out, a decent number of lieutenants over the last 2 or 4 years.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist, also co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. You look at some of the national news, obviously you have Obamacare news that is out there, but you still have 2016 stuff that keeps popping up and Ted Cruz news, Rand Paul news that keeps popping up. What do you anticipate going forward for Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, some of these other senators that are going to be running for president? How do you think they're going to interact with some of the other GOP leadership? And taking a look at Ted Cruz, last week we saw that Ted Cruz supported Mitch McConnell. That was a unanimous vote for Mitch McConnell. But we've had this whole narrative out there that Ted Cruz was going to be a pain for Mitch McConnell. Is that just media hype against Ted Cruz?
No, I think he could be a little bit of a pain. I think it remains to be seen whether he can marshal the kind of support for the strategy that he wants to advance in the new Congress that he did with the Obamacare fight over the debt ceiling. So he was able to essentially, by sort of sheer force of will and the power of the grassroots, force an unwilling House and Senate leadership to support his strategy. And I think that, I think the specifics on that are probably more complicated than the perception, but the perception is that the shutdown didn't help Republicans politically.
Right.
If you hadn't had the Obamacare enrollment disaster with the website, it's possible that really could have hurt us for a little while politically. Now, I think the damage was short term, but so, the difference now, Chet, for Ted Cruz or Rand Paul or Marco Rubio or a number of these conservative members is it's easy to vote no on a bill that passes, right? Because you're not responsible for it not passing, but you're also not responsible for it passing, okay? So you sort of are in a guilt-free zone. Now, when you're in the majority, particularly if you got 53, 54 members like they're going to have, they've got to not only keep all the Republicans, but they've got to go get 6 Democrats to get 60 votes to move anything. Now, the one difference will be budget reconciliation. They can probably try to repeal Obamacare if they choose to when they pass a budget with 51 votes, which, if you remember, Obamacare was passed with 51 votes. So that's the one scenario where you could perhaps lose a Ted Cruz or one Republican here or there. But you want to pass the Keystone Pipeline, you want to do tax reform, you want to add border security. All those things take 60 votes, and so McConnell's going to have to keep all the Republicans together, and that's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah. Before I let you go, you brought up the shutdown. There are some Republicans, some in the media already talking about another government shutdown if Obama goes forward with executive action. Would that be a smart move for Republicans, or would it be, again, government shutdown, but all Republicans are blamed for it?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, I don't believe the media gives you a fair shot on a government shutdown. So if you remember, if you go back, and this is something that Cruz would say, and that is, it was the president that chose to shut down the government rather than sign the individual appropriations bills that the House was passing. You don't get a fair shake, and ultimately the president's megaphone is a lot bigger than the House or the Senate. So I just think shutting down the government generally is a political loser. It certainly has been the last 20 years. Yeah. I don't think Republicans are going to do that. I think McConnell and Boehner are absolutely just dead set against using that tactic. Look, part of it depends on where public opinion is on this executive action once the president takes it. the other thing about it is that from a political standpoint, he will own the executive order. Okay, he will own amnesty. If there are negative repercussions to that amnesty, economic, national security, other types of ramifications, he will own them individually. And I think that also is a political challenge for him. But I'd much rather see Republicans focus on what they want to pass, trying to roll back negative parts of Obamacare, obviously passing a repeal, getting tax reform done. There's lots of big things out there. At the end of the day, Chad, this executive order is intended to try to make Republicans overreact.
Right.
The president knows it's an executive order, which means it expires. Presidency, it's not a law, it's not permanent. It's obviously very damaging. It's probably unconstitutional. It's certainly illegal. But it's not. It's something that he is doing. He did it after the election. He's going to do it after the election. The reason he's doing it is because he wants to get Republicans to overreact. And so my hope is that we won't.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, what can people find on mustreadtexas.com today and throughout the week?
Yeah, shifting from obviously the campaign cycle, the election cycle, over to the legislative session. As you rightly referenced, lots of focus on the speaker's race, focus on what the governor-elect, lieutenant governor-elect are doing. So a lot of news on mustreadtexas.com, also all the 2016 chatter as well. You can sign up for our newsletter there as well.
All right, Matt Mackowiak, as always, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chad. Take care.
You too. It's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak as well.